Welcome to Easy Vibes. I'm your host, Chico Moya, and we believe in having conversations with people from all over the world, from all walks of life, and this episode is no different. So I had the privilege of having a conversation with Keith and Josh. I met them both online, and they're Americans living in Finland, of all places. So we had a very interesting conversation. We touched on some politics, and we spoke about the differences of living in Finland as opposed to America, and a whole bunch of other stuff in between. I thoroughly enjoyed having a conversation with these amazing guys, and I'm sure you will enjoy it too. So let's get to it. But yeah, thank you for inviting me to Tampere.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'd love the city, and we'd love to bring people to it. I'd love to show you around more if it wasn't so springtime in Finland right now.
Yeah, I walked out the apartment door to come here, and I saw the snow, and I started actually punching the air.
No, because I was just like, as soon as I arrived here, I don't know what I was expecting, but as soon as I saw the weather, I was like, Tampere, Turku, whatever. It's still the same, like in terms of like the weather and shit.
It's still Finland, yeah.
Yeah, yesterday was actually pretty sunny, but you know, it's a crapshoot, really, at this point.
Yeah. So, okay. I guess we are. I think everything is on and ready.
Cool.
To
Rolling.
go.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty
Same.
good.
I'm on and ready to go.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
But I guess the first thing I want to kind of start off with is, how do two Americans end up in bloody Finland?
That's a great question, and I'm gonna give that to Josh to start with because his leads into mine. So.
Yeah, it's really not that exciting of a story. I had a few friends in Philadelphia where I was living at the time who were au pairs, and I kind of had like a quarter life.
You said au pair.
Au
right?
pairs, yeah.
Oh, right,
Au pairs,
right.
Yeah. And I had kind of like a quarter life crisis where I was like, I'm doing pretty well financially and career wise. I should throw it all in the trash and move to Europe. And so that's what I did. And a couple of my friends who were au pairs gave me the idea to maybe try doing a year as an au pair. And so I had made a profile on this au pair agency and spoke with some families all over the world, Australia, Germany, and just ended up liking the family in Finland the best and decided to come here. I didn't know anything about Finland. I didn't even know Nokia was Finnish. Like, I didn't know anything about Finland. And so I came here, and 6 years later, I'm still here. Yeah, I guess I'm one of the few that didn't come here for a woman or metal music.
Shots fired. Damn.
Yeah, so mine obviously comes off of Josh's. We've known each other since we were 15 years old. I think that's what we've landed on now. And I was in the States. I was 29 years old at the time, about a year and a half ago. Some things had happened in my life to where I was no longer as tied to living there as I was before. I got a divorce. I sold my house. Some things happened in my family that I was just kind of like, I'd always wanted to try living outside of the States in some way. My first choices were going to be a Spanish-speaking country because I speak some Spanish and I could probably get around that way. But then I realized that the places I was looking at, I didn't know anyone. So I remembered Josh, my very good friend who was in my wedding, my first wedding. He lived here. So I'll be honest, I was drunk one night and I was like, hey man, I want to try living outside of the country. How do you like Finland? And he was like, come on over. So about 2 months later, I had sold my car. I had sold everything in the States, left a very good paying job that I loved just to try something new. And that was a year and a half ago.
Do you regret it?
No, not at all.
Is there anything that you miss particularly?
I mean, obviously, you know, the job market there for a native English speaker and an American is much easier. I miss my family and very good friends and things like that back home, but say regrets as a negative, not really. Because I'm trying something new, I'm doing something that most people don't even have the opportunity to do. So since I took that opportunity, I'm very happy with my decision. And if I hadn't moved here, I wouldn't have met my beautiful Finnish wife. And
He's flexing on us.
I love it. No, but no, it was it was a great decision, and I definitely don't have any regrets about it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. And what about you? You said you moved here because you were doing au pair work.
Yeah.
And then what kept you here?
Well, I tried to make the whole joke about not coming for a woman, but I did stay for a woman. I ended up meeting my ex shortly after living here, maybe like 4 or 5 months after moving here.
Really?
And we were together for about 4 years, got married, and well, that ended up not working out, but I loved Finland so much, and I felt so at home here, and the prospect of moving back to the States felt so anxiety inducing that I was like, I'm gonna do whatever I can to stay here. and yeah, so there's no partner in the picture now, but that kind of I'd be lying if I said that wasn't the reason I was here for so long.
Right. I find that so intriguing. You said anxiety inducing to go back to the States. Are you thinking about the States in general, or just the state you were living in, or
Ooh, the States in general? I mean, it's such a different environment in day-to-day life. Like, the hustle culture, the constant need to always feel like if you're not hustling, if you're not on the grind, if you're not, doing something, that you're gonna fall behind, or you're never gonna be able to catch up. The constant feeling of, if you miss an electric payment, your lights are gonna be turned off the next day. If you miss, if it's always riding this very thin wire of, I think a lot of people don't realize that most Americans are one missed paycheck away from complete disaster.
Homelessness. Yeah.
And so it's just this constant anxiety that you don't know you're dealing with until you remove yourself from it. And when you're living in Finland, like, obviously there's things in Finland that you struggle with, and there are things that we as foreigners in Finland struggle with. But they're different struggles, and they're struggles that I would personally rather deal with than the struggles in the States.
Yeah. To tack on to that, I was having a conversation with, I believe it was another American immigrant here, who was talking about, like, I moved back to the States for a few months with my wife, and then we moved back here this past January. And they mentioned just like, you can't put a finger on it until you go back there and come back. And then you come back and you just feel this like peace settle in. Like, you're there and everything is moving so fast. Everything is constantly happening. The political things that are going on there, no matter what side you're on, it's very tumultuous in that way. And then moving back here, I got back and with no job, we had just gotten this apartment. My wife was still looking for work. Like, everything is still very stressful, but just being here and being in this environment is so much more peaceful. And just people laugh at the whole Finland is the happiest country thing, which, it's fun to make jokes about, because it's going to be sad wherever you're going to be if you're going to be a sad person. But it's not so much about the happiness, it's about the contentment. And you can be content here. I can be content here going from making almost $100,000 a year in the States to here making no money, and we're surviving on one income. And I'm still like, it's stressful, but it's still very like, I'm okay. Like, I'm going to live the next day. I'm going to eat. I'm going to survive. Without that, yeah.
Yeah, I completely get you. And I was actually in Copenhagen. I went to go visit.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my word, what an amazing city! But I went around asking people, if Copenhagen or if Denmark is a happy country and whatnot, because it came second on the list or something. And then there's one guy who I spoke to, he said exactly what you said. He was just like, it's not about the being happy, it's about the security you feel.
Yep.
The fact that, I don't know, I got really shook coming to Finland and realizing that at least the government seems to care about its people.
Yeah. What a mind-blowing concept. Yeah. For the government to care about the people and not their own interests. That's insane to me.
At the risk of, I guess, making some people angry watching this, I think a lot of the time you hear from Finns who have never lived outside of Finland or never really lived outside of Finland. Travel is different, obviously. I'm talking about living outside of Finland. Of course, it's easy to point out the things and say, oh, the Finnish government doesn't care about the people, or the Finnish government in this way or that way, or, you know, whatever. But and it's not to reduce anyone's own lived experience or to say that they're not valid in feeling the way that they feel, but it is, you know, one of those things that I think a lot of foreigners who come to Finland have a completely different lived experience, in the sense where, you know, you go from feeling like a constant piece in a machine to feeling like you have at least some semblance of individuality.
Yeah.
You know, and it's I don't want to leave it.
Yeah, it is very much more I don't know, more communal, I guess. I mean, being a dirty socialist country, as some people would say in the States, coming from such a capitalist place, and not to say Finland isn't a capitalist, because it very much is, but it is just more comfortable to be here and live, to live your life. You're not living the whole thing of working to live versus live to work and all of that kind of stuff. You can just be comfortable living here, as opposed to like you said, the grind culture and everything.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you're kinder than I am. I get really frustrated with people who talk down on Finland when they've never lived anywhere else.
He does as well. Yeah.
I genuinely, it frustrates me, because I'm like, bro, you're living in a bloody bubble.
Yeah.
And you don't know it. Like, you're like, oh, the government's only giving me 1,000 euros a month. I'm like, bro, like what?
Yeah. How does that like that sense of social security here? How does that translate? I don't know if we're throwing questions back to you, but like living in Joburg or living in South Africa, like what does that look like there for as far as social security versus here? Can you give somebody a context?
Yeah, for sure. Basically, there are no guardrails in South African society in general. Perhaps they have not changed. No.
You thought for a second, maybe.
No, they are generally no guardrails created by the government, like proper guardrails. Like even pension is terribly low. The government, at least in even in the States, I think there's obviously a lot of underhanded things being done by the government and whatever, but they at least have the foresight to try and hide it.
Yeah.
In South Africa, they steal from you while looking at you, like, oh, that's I'll take that, right?
Okay.
So, and also, I think another really important thing is how safe it is in comparison to South Africa. So some of these things, you don't know that they're a weight on your mind until they're not there anymore. Just like how you're saying, that whole hustle culture, until you arrive here and you're like, oh.
Yeah. Safety is a whole nother thing. Like when I did move back last year after spending a full year here, the things you don't realize are so nice here compared to living back in the States. I flew into Chicago, and I love Chicago. I've been there many times. I stayed there overnight before I went back home to Indiana, and just getting off the train to go to my hotel, I'm carrying my bags, and it's just homeless person. And it's Chicago too, so there's that impending sense of, even though I'm in like the north side, it's still like that Chicago is very dangerous. And then it puts me back in that mindset of like, why I used to own a handgun and have it at the house all the time, because people talk about there'll be a big violent event that happens somewhere in Tampere, and people will talk about it for 2 weeks. Whereas if that happened in the States, we wouldn't talk about it for 5 seconds. Be like, there was one stabbing in Leilahti, there were 5 stabbings on the south side this afternoon. Like, it's just the safety aspect, the mental safety. Like, I can walk here on the street at 4 a.m., very drunk or with a bunch of friends or by myself, and I don't even worry about the people that are walking next to me. I don't even think about it.
Yeah, being here has made me soft. Yeah,
for sure, dude. I totally agree.
I was just back in last November, and I kind of realized, like, situations when I lived there that never would have even made me blink were now all of a sudden putting me on edge. You know, like I never really lived in a terrible neighborhood. Well, I guess my parents do kind of live in the ghetto.
yeah.
Yeah, my parents live in the ghetto. Full disclosure.
Oh, well, what area? What
Well,
state?
they live
I
in
mean-
Indianapolis, same
Okay.
place that he was also moving from. Well, not the same place, but same state.
Right.
They live on the southwest side of Indianapolis, and it's pretty rough. But even when I was living in Philadelphia before I moved here, there's this small, I guess, neighborhood of Philadelphia called Chester. And I distinctly remember, what was it, 2017 or something, right before I moved here, Chester, there was statewide news because Chester had gone 48 hours without a homicide.
Really?
So it was like everyone was talking about how maybe they're finally cleaning up Chester, maybe it's getting its act together. But that level of like, wherever you're walking, even if you're in an area you're familiar with and you feel safe, there's always this kind of little spidey sense on the back of your neck where you think
Yep.
someone can come in here with a gun, someone can come in here and hold up the place, or you can get caught in the crossfire of someone's argument, or you can, there's always this sort of keeping your head on a swivel at all times,
Yep. Exactly. And I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but I've found it a lot easier to be grateful in general, simply because I feel like I've got more, with all the stuff we're talking about, the fact that I don't really have to worry about someone attacking me in general.
Yeah.
I still do have a little bit of as you said, a spidey sense where if I'm especially in Helsinki, if I'm walking and I see someone walking with a hoodie behind me, I get really irritated because I'm like, do you not have the foresight to understand that, if I'm wearing a hoodie and I've got my hands in my pocket and there's someone walking in front of me, maybe I'm just tripping because I'm used to this sort of shit in South Africa, but I would never be like walking directly behind the person, like really quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I get the same.
That still frustrates me.
Even this happened to me last night. I was walking home from work, and it was some kind of student event going on in the city last night. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but you can always tell when you see the overalls come out into the wild.
Thursdays, baby.
Yeah. And so I was walking home from work, and I just had like a I don't know, a Coke Zero that I had taken from work, and was walking, and there was this group of people behind me, and they were just walking and walking, and I don't know what it was. I just stopped walking and waited for them to pass me because I could not have these four people behind me who were obviously drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And they walk by, and I see they're just students having a good time, drinking their Gambino or whatever, and just, having fun. But I just couldn't tolerate having these four people behind me. Like, I needed to stop and let them pass.
I've done that. I don't know if you've ever done that before.
Oh, yeah. So well, first of all, living in the States, you just kind of have to be a little more aware. But then also going to the military, they pound it into your head that just situational awareness is what they call it. But just being aware of everyone in the situation. So like when I get into crowds and things, especially when I was living in the States and I was around it all the time, it just like, I would get so stressed out. Like even I love going to concerts and playing music and things, and being around that many people would just like, I was up here all the time. And then it's slowly now dwindled off being here, so I can be in a crowd here and it doesn't give me that kind of panic response. But then going back to the States and being around that many people, like when I was in Chicago or when I was in Indianapolis, it came back. And then I moved back here and it's again settled out a little more. But yeah, that being aware of everyone around you and having to pay attention to like what they look like, what are they doing, how are they acting, that kind of thing. It is like it's an anxiety response. He's seen me, I think, a few times. I have to just leave. Like I can't do it right now, and I just have to step out from bar or party or whatever. And just,
where does that come from? Is it has something happened before that has created that, or is it just in general?
It's well, there's a lot of fear mongering in the States, and especially in big cities, about big cities. And I have pretty severe anxiety at some points, so it crops up in weird ways sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it doesn't help when you can't even really avoid it anymore. Years ago, you used to just be able to not watch the news. You just I just won't turn on the news. And now it's like you open up TikTok and it pops up on your For You page. You open up Instagram and it's there in your feed. You go to Reddit and it's there. It's like it's impossible to avoid always constantly seeing, especially if you're in the States, like, a new shooting at Greenwood Park Mall, the mall that
Yeah.
him and I used to go to as teenagers. He would travel to meet me, and we'd go spend all day just messing around at the mall. And now I went back there, I went back there in November with my sister, and they had ballistics dogs going around the whole building at all.
That was 2 years ago. We had the shooting there. I live 5 minutes from there, like driving, and there was a shooting. Like somebody just brought in an assault rifle and shot the place up.
I mean, this
crazy.
like level of dystopianism, almost like going to this place that I used to go hang out with him and our friends as teenagers, and we would just spend all day there. Our parents don't even, not even thinking about our safety. We're just going into Hot Topic and talking about the cute girls walking by who are never going to look at us. And, all this stuff piling into a car that's way too small for all of us. And,
Yeah.
Right.
And then, like, now going there, and the attitude is just like, you see these head to toe armored police officers with ballistics dogs walking around, and signs everywhere, like, gun free zone and all this stuff. And you just feel like you're in some kind of like Hunger Games shit, it's
Yeah.
like, what is happening? Like, so I think that even just being constantly bombarded with it, even if you've never been in a situation physically where there's been an active shooter, you just constantly feel like it's possible.
Right.
Whether or not it statistically is possible, I almost like to describe it as if all you ever saw in the news was person gets struck by lightning, you're always gonna think you get struck by that every time you walk out the door. It's a risk.
It's like shark attacks.
Yeah,
it's like shark attacks, and
Yeah.
you build it up in your head. Even if statistically it's a ridiculous improbability, you still think that it's way higher than.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. Because I have this theory. I think it's been proven quite a lot that social media, it makes the world feel smaller, and it makes you feel like you're closer to things than you actually are.
Yeah.
Because I personally, for example, I know that it's really popular to hate America and whatever. I know. I know that's sort of the vibe, but I've kind of like, after like watching a lot of like, just watching how the world is moving and whatever, and how we here in Finland are able to live the way we live, and the EU, the hegemony between the EU and the US and that sort of stuff, I've really understood how important it is for America to be bloody strong. Like they have to be, otherwise, like, what's the alternative?
Yeah.
What, you're gonna throw in Russia there or China?
I like to joke, like, hate America, that's why I live here, that kind of thing. But I love America. I love the diversity. I love a lot of things about America. I love that we are a world power. We are a world economy power. Like, there are a lot of good things, but having all that strength and power and that many people, it breeds, on both sides of the political aisle especially, it breeds like this super powered thing. So you have the far left and the far right, and then it's becoming so divided because we're so powerful and we have no one who can actually threaten us. We find the threats, and then that builds more division and everything between the people. And it's come to such a head in the past 20 years that again, I don't hate America, but I hate what it is becoming, what it's turning into with what the past 20 years has like done there. The world power stuff it's nice to, you can live pretty comfortably there if you have a good job and that kind of thing, but a lot of things get left behind with that.
For sure.
Too.
Yeah, and I do think, I mean, America is unique in the way it was created. It's unique in its constitution. It's unique in this idea that carries it, right? Like, it's a home for basically immigrants from all over the world, right? It has been trying to do, and it has done something that's quite remarkable in a sense. And I totally understand the frustration and the anger with America. But one thing I do wonder, because I've got brothers living in the States, one's in Dallas and one's in New York.
Okay.
I do wonder how much of the turmoil is online and how much of it is in your day-to-day life. I don't know if you've seen this meme. It's not a meme, but it's a real thing where dogs will bark at each other if there's a fence between them.
Oh, right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then as soon as you remove the fence,
Yeah.
they kind of like,
That's a good visual. That's a good visual representation of kind of what it's like there. Josh hasn't lived there in a few years, but it's gotten worse since he left, because you left what, 20?
Left 2018, so I was like halfway into the Trump administration.
Yeah, so that's when it really kicked up a notch. Was definitely the Trump times.
I didn't live there during
2015
COVID.
on.
Thank God. I
Yeah,
imagine COVID would have been hell.
COVID bumped it up a lot as well, but like I'm able to talk to just about anyone, no matter what you believe in. I might not agree with you, but I can at least have a conversation with you.
right.
Some people I could see definitely, if they put two of them in a room and tried to have them have a conversation, they would be, no matter if there's a fence or not, they would get at it. But most of it is social media driven, at least. It starts on social media, and then people get these ideas put in their head that this person is the enemy because they think this person is the enemy because they think that. And then it starts there where no one has to put their face to it. And then once there's big enough backing to these ideas, then it doesn't matter if there's a face or not. You know that person is the enemy. So because that guy owns 10 guns and I believe in, more leftist ideals or something, he is now the enemy. He is what's ruining America. And then that guy thinks that I want like children to be transgender or something. Like, it's just this blown out of proportion thing where like 5% of the population on each side is doing this thing and building this rhetoric up. And then in person now it's become more okay to have these like confrontational experiences.
Yeah.
Whereas it started, I think, where it's more faceless and there's just more of a backing to it, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got a hypothesis. You guys are welcome to agree or disagree. I think that this cultish following with either side, because surely, I don't care what side you're on. Surely if something makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like surely you can be like, yo, that's dumb.
Sure.
I might prefer this candidate, but what he's doing is just kind of stupid. Like, don't like, I think normal people are like that. But I do think there seems to be like a religious element to the way people are starting to follow politics. It's as if I don't know if this is actually my belief or if it's something that I've just heard and kind of took into myself, but it does seem that with the decline of religiosity, Christianity more specifically, like with the whole new atheist movement or whatever, the whole idea was that once you remove religion, people become more rational. And
right.
But it seems like people find a religious fervor for anything. And right now, politics, it's like someone who's on the left has to believe everything that's on the left. Someone who's on the right, you have to have, a gun up your ass, and you're on the left, you have to have like 6 transgender children. Like, it's like you have to believe. And I don't know, I'm kind of like, I get the feeling that people have replaced religion for another religion.
Oh yeah. I think that's the biggest issue in the States right now. And you're also kind of seeing it in the UK as well, is these, I guess in the States they call them like single issue voters, you know, where they will vote whatever side they're on only because of one single issue. Like you might talk to somebody who's going to vote for Trump in this upcoming election purely because of his stance on gun control. And that is it. They don't care about his economic policy. They don't care about his foreign policy. They don't care about any of his legal battles that he's fighting right now. Purely that's it. And you see people on the left do the same. They will vote for somebody who is clearly not a good candidate purely because of their stance on like reproductive laws or things like that, which, I do understand in believing in something so fervently that you just cannot bend on it. But I think the biggest problem when you have that dichotomy is that you end up kind of selling yourself for one single cause. And my this isn't my analogy, but I don't really remember where I heard it, so I can't credit anybody with it because I don't remember. But the analogy I had heard once was that politics is kind of like public transport. Like it might not take you exactly where you need to go, but you're still going to get on the bus that's going to get you the closest. So but I think a lot of people in the States especially now will rather stand there than get on the bus that's going to get them closest, because it's not going to take them. So they're so obsessed with that one single issue that they're unwilling to compromise on anything else. I mean, I've met Republicans who, when you get down to the nitty gritty, they agree with, leading Democratic candidates on 80% of topics, but they absolutely will not vote Democrat because that Democrat is opposed to that one thing that they can't bend on, or that they won't bend on.
Yeah.
And it's like,
tying it back to Finland too is Finland. We have 9 major political parties, I think, something like that. There were like 9 runners for president this year. We have been stuck and entrenched in this 2-party system in America for so long that that's what we're forced to do. And there are so many issues now. Like before, it was just, well, there are many factors, I guess, but before it was just like, are you Republican? Are you Democrat? Are you fiscally conservative or fiscally liberal?
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
And now it's gotten to the point where one side is talking about like they're QAnon believers on one side, and the other side is just the exact opposite to the extreme, because they have to be. There can't be any middle ground whatsoever, no matter what, if they agree or not on a certain issue. They have to just accept their party's version, because there's only 2 parties to vote for. Yeah. There are realistically more like 5 parties, but 2 of them are the only 2 that get to debate each other on national TV, or 2 that go on the main ballot. Like none of it. So you have to be forced in one of these 2 camps. And myself sitting almost in the middle on a lot of issues, it's difficult, because who do I choose? Well, it's kind of obvious now, but who do I choose a lot of times on the political spectrum?
Yeah. When you even see this rhetoric now, I see it on TikTok especially a lot. TikTok is this kind of crazy echo chamber that I really try to avoid comment sections on. But
it's terrible.
You see this kind of rhetoric of even the idea of being a centrist is almost vile to both sides.
Yes.
They're like, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. It's like,
yes,
you've already fallen for anything. Like, you've already drank the Kool-Aid. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean?
Exactly. No, I completely agree. But like, I want to throw something to you guys. This is the way I kind of view it at the moment. I'm currently reading this book called by Jonathan Haidt. I forgot what his name is. It's called The Righteous Mind. And this idea is like, how can 2 reasonable people so disagree on a level where they think that the other person is abhorrent for not agreeing with them? Like, what is happening? So I think the way I view it is that I think in general, people do want to live a nice life. They want to feel safe. They want to, I think if you go into politics believing the other person is evil, you fucked already, right? Yeah. But I think that for both parties, like the 2 extreme sides, they've got their own view of how they get there. So the way this book describes feeling righteous or what is right is like, it's like taste buds. It's like, we can all taste sweet and bitter and whatever. But maybe this person prefers the sweet that comes from a cheesecake, and the other person prefers the sweet that comes from just eating pure sugar. So say, for example, take when it comes to education, Democrats might believe that, hey, to encourage people to do better, we need to, I don't know, actively discriminate in the favor of Black people to get them into education, because there's a disparity between them. And the core is good. Like the core, I completely understand it, right? Someone more on the right will be like, yeah, no, we can't do that. We need to keep the standards high so that when these people get into these educational institutions, they got there because they earned it. And if they earned it, we'll respect them because of that. The core I understand you don't want people to feel like they've been cheated or whatever.
Sure.
And then they just can't seem to find the balance between the two, because now it's just like, no, you're wrong. Same thing with like gun control or whatever. It's like,
There's so many additional factors come into play that it'll turn from a basic argument on, say, public education, and it goes from should we have God in schools, or should we let it be school and teach about what we need to teach about.
Yeah.
And sure, right-wing people are going to want more religion in schools, left-wing people are going to want less. That's the basis of it, and they're both coming from places that they believe are correct. But now it's turned into right-wing people are pulling their children out of school, and they don't believe in the public education system. They're actively attacking teachers and things online because their children was taught about evolution in school. If you're in science class, you're going to learn about science. You're not in religion class, you're not going to learn about religion. But it becomes a so much bigger thing because so many other ideals get attached to every single issue. It's not just education, it's every single issue. Everything gets tacked onto it like little cancer cells, and it just grows into this homunculus that nobody even recognizes anymore. You look 20 years ago at the arguments that are being had today, outside of maybe some things that maybe society's just grown to become more acceptable of, it's just like we wouldn't even recognize why we're having these discussions. Looking at debates,
I think we've lost the plot.
Lost the
quite a
plot
bit.
completely. Yeah.
I think, and that's not something that's necessarily exclusive to USA. I mean, even living here in Finland, you see more political discourse on the rise, with more extreme parties on both sides kind of getting a lot more popularity. You start seeing slowly this kind of political discourse almost happening across the globe, and it's a fascinating thing to observe because on one end, you have kind of people who think like the hyper moral ground, like everything that they do is they're looking down on, who they consider to be the immoral. And then you have the other half that maybe is almost willing to sacrifice what they might even themselves consider morality just to give the middle finger to the hyper intellectual.
Yep.
It's almost like, oh, you think I'm stupid, so fuck you, like,
yeah.
And then you just
exactly
end up
what
kind
you
of
mean.
like tearing each other apart. And it's like, that's why I think you've also seen like the rise of hyper anti-intellectualism in the States.
Yes.
You see a
Very
lot of
much
people no offense to religious people. We grew up in we both have very religious families. So I don't mean this in any bad way, but you see in the very, very far end of the religious spectrum, people who are actively anti-science in any way, or anti-data, or anti any kind of data that comes out. They're immediately skeptical of it because they just don't want to believe it, or they don't want to listen to it. And that, I also think, comes from the hyper-intellectual who maybe come across as condescending or dismissive, or, and you have both sides where it's like you might have a very reasonable person on either end, but because they're both approaching each other as you're an idiot, you're an asshole, they're never going to meet.
There's no discourse, especially with, there's a few things that have built this up, but social media, that like building of the rhetoric on each side, in somewhere in the 70s and 80s, our news media was allowed to be biased. They passed a law where all of a sudden news media was allowed to be biased. So before we had Walter Cronkite, who was just reporting the news for the most part. And then after this law's passed, and we're able to do this, now we have Fox News and CNN or MSNBC over here, and they can say whatever they want and call it news, even though it's just opinion. And then people see, well, I'm watching the news, and the news told me this was wrong, so I believe it's wrong, even though they haven't seen the other side of it because they've only been told a biased version of what is practically just opinion-based fact dissemination.
Yeah, it's really tricky because exactly what you said in terms of the way, I mean, I've seen, say, I watch something happen live, something terrible, and then I'll watch a better example will be I watch a debate between a left-leaning person and a right-leaning person, and I come out of the debate being like, wow, that was a great conversation, right? And then
He kicked his ass. Yeah.
He got destroyed.
Look
but
how stupid this one looked.
No,
Yeah,
I really get shook by that. I'm genuinely like, wait, did we?
Was I watching the wrong debate?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Genuinely, I'm really blown away by that. And there's a streamer that I watch sometimes named Destiny. I find like some people don't like him or whatever, but one thing I really like about him is the fact that he genuinely digs deep into the actual story. So CNN will be like, I don't know, black guy got shot by police. And BLM is going crazy, blah, blah, blah. And sure, and in some cases, rightfully so. And then we'll be like, okay, cool. And then he on stream, he'll be like, cool, let's check it out. What happened? And he'll go in and then read a bunch of different descriptions of what happened. And then finally, after digging in a little bit, you realize, oh, the guy pulled out a gun.
Sure.
So, like, I mean, it's bad that he died, but
Yes.
that kind of changes
Yeah.
the whole story. And in some cases, it's the opposite. It's like, yo, that dude literally did nothing, whatever.
Right.
But I've completely understood that when I watch left-wing media or right-wing media, I do have a grain of salt sprinkled on all the time.
Yes.
Like, I genuinely, of course, there are certain things that I favor. Like,
right.
I can feel my heart lean towards this person when they speak. I'm like, oh, I want to believe that.
Right.
But a part of me is also like, but it's also probably not the complete truth.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that also because of that kind of reporting, where it will be reported with the headline, and it's headline news anyway. Nobody's reading articles. Somebody sees the headline and they attach all of their own shit to it. Of course, they attach all of their shit from back here, all of their experiences, what other headlines they've read before, and then say that it is debunked, or say that the black guy pulled a gun and now the cop had a reason to shoot him. Well, then someone else could say, well, what about Trayvon? Trayvon didn't have a gun. And then
Right.
it's just back and forth about stuff that happened before, and then people are saying things that are factually inaccurate. Sorry.
No, it's
And
okay.
then people are coming back with other things that are factually inaccurate on the other side. And well, what about they said this wrong and they did this wrong? And it
Oh,
is
man.
just it's a homunculus. It's just this blob of
I like that word.
misinformation. And I
Homunculus.
borrowed it from him. He uses it a lot.
One of my favorite words.
It
We'll
has
put it on the
grown
bottom
into
of the
this
screen.
thing to where like there's no reasonable discourse to be had without you'd have to have 3 fact checkers, 2 people sitting in front of microphones, everything being recorded, and then you could pour over it with actual factual detail, and no one would care.
Yeah.
No one would care. No one would at least listen to that or read the facts. Nobody cares enough. They just want their side to win.
Or now you get
It's
the
so tribal.
Oh man, it's maybe changing lanes a little bit, but that just one thing you see a lot now in at the risk of sounding like a boomer, but the one thing that like with Gen Z that just the quickest way to set me off is when you like say something that you really even if you're not that passionate about it, you maybe point out that something's wrong or something's inaccurate, or you kind of provide like a different opinion on it, and you get back womp womp. I'm like,
Oh yeah. Oh, you talking about the response?
yeah,
you
yeah,
get?
their response. They just,
Like,
it's when they have
new age trolling
they have
is-
nothing else to say to you, so
Yeah.
they just reply with, "Wah," and you're like,
yeah.
and that's the level we've reached, where it's like, even if I now somewhere in my brain recognize that you're right or you have a point, I would rather humiliate you than admit it.
Yep.
I would rather just womp womp.
It's just whataboutism. It's whataboutism turned into Gen Z. It's Gen Z's version of saying, well, actually, what about this other thing they did?
Oh yeah,
It's
millennials do it too. We
It's just a
do it in different
misdirection.
way,
It's just
yeah.
a misdirection, and you're not even addressing the original point after 3 comments anymore. And then
Yep.
everybody's reading that, and you don't even think about all the people that read that don't even like the comments or anything, and then that is just in their brain now. What you said, no matter if it's true or not, it's just, and you read 70 of these comments in an hour, and all that's just now in your head, and you don't even realize it subconsciously, but that's now shaping how you feel, and then you say something based on what somebody else said
Yeah.
that never had any basis in reality.
Well, dude. People just lie now, and a lot of people don't. There was what's that one?
So true.
That-
I think you can say that again. That's literally what
just
happens.
lie now. I
People
mean,
just go on the internet and lie.
yeah, who would do that? But like, I remember just having that kind of hit my face this isn't even political, but like I'm a huge fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's my favorite show of all time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, I hate Avatar: The Last Airbender, so fuck
First
you.
off, your Aang looking ass, get out of here.
I haven't watched the Netflix one yet.
Well, we're
I gotta watch that.
you should like it. It's your kind of people's representation, the bald. You know?
Follically challenged is what we
Follically
prefer.
challenged, yeah. But there was this one of the characters one of the actresses who plays one of the main characters, Azula. There's obviously going to be hate anytime you make a cartoon into a live action.
Yeah.
People are going to say they don't look like the character. Well, of course, the original character's a fucking cartoon. Of course,
Yeah.
you know, like of course the actor doesn't look just like them.
Yeah.
But there was this one video I saw, and it was just a tweet, and of course you can buy verification on Twitter. So it's a verified account that says the actress Elizabeth Wu has, I think that's her name, Elizabeth Wu. Sorry if I'm getting the name wrong, but Elizabeth Wu has been miscast because of what. And all these people were just, well, that's a fact. I see it. I saw a TikTok of it that said that she's been recast and they're going to do it. And there were people who were mad about it, people who were happy about it. And I'm like, a 3-second Google search will show you that that's not true. She has not been recast. She's going to play Azula in the next season. But it's like how quickly, and this video had, millions of views. And then I start seeing that same rhetoric on other videos, like people commenting on the casting, and they're like, well, she's been recast. No, she hasn't. You saw one TikTok.
Yeah.
And you just decided, okay, that's the truth. And the thing is, like, everyone, a lot of these young millennials, Gen Z, whatever, they all talk about how boomers are so impressionable, they'll believe anything they see online. You believe anything you see online.
so
I
true.
see it so much in younger generations, just taking everything at face value. And it's terrifying the amount of misinformation you can spread with just one viral TikTok.
For me, and we don't. I actually don't want to get into this topic, but like, when the whole Israel Gaza thing started, I didn't know very much about that region at all.
Sure.
And there was a bunch of TikToks going on. And then I decided to look into it a little bit, to start reading a book about it and try see what's happening. And then I realized that what you said, people lie completely. And I'm talking about either side, whatever, I don't give a shit. But like, I was seeing someone give a history lesson. I couldn't believe
Not a
my
single word
ears
of it is
and
true,
my
yeah.
eyes. And then there were hundreds of comments being like, yeah. I was just like, holy crap.
People just
That is
lie. They
crazy.
just say shit.
Yeah. Because there's no, you're not going to get in trouble for it.
No consequence.
There's
for
no
it.
consequence to
Holy
it.
shit. But I'm saying it was lying to the point of it being criminal. Like,
Yeah.
we're talking about, number one, people's lives, things happening that are changing an entire region, and things are going crazy, and you out here just stoking the flames
For no reason.
like,
For views.
holy crap. And then I tried to make a video.
Ooh.
Is that the
That's our timer right there. I'm going to go pee.
yeah, go for it. We can take a little break. Yeah, so anyway, I was saying that I made a video
Yeah.
kind of trying to explain my view on the whole thing, but I tried to be as factual as I could. And one thing I noticed is that people really, they get on a high horse.
Mhm.
They believe that because they feel something, that then it means that everything else someone espouses is complete garbage or not even worth listening to.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've noticed is people feel that their emotions trump their emotions trump anything else.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. I don't know if it's just, is it the way the world has gone? Is it like the younger generation or whatever? It's just because I feel that war is evil or bad. It means that all war ever can never be just, or can never be there can never be a reason for it,
Yeah.
even though we all hate it or whatever. And that's a lame example, or any other example. And I just find that quite interesting. It's like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
all right to hate something. And even for example, like when it comes to American politics, when it came to the whole Donald Trump thing and whatever, I won't lie, I really didn't care. I was just like, hey, you guys can.
Yeah, of course.
It makes you check out emotionally when it's so
Yeah.
strong and it doesn't affect you specifically, like you're not there especially. And me being a white American, like white male American especially, a lot of things that he would do don't really affect me specifically. Like they're not going to hurt me or hinder me in my living life. But my empathetic self knows that it will injure or hurt a lot of other people, so I care more about it. But it is so easy to mentally check out, and I've done it on multiple occasions, just on politics, on religion, on anything. It's just so easy to just be like, you know what? I don't even want to think about it anymore. Like I know
Yeah.
it's important, but I just don't care anymore. Like
Yeah.
nothing I do is gonna change. Yeah, it's that's easy. But speaking to the feelings, facts versus feelings, it's so funny on a few different issues where the right first started saying facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah.
And then there was some other issue. It was either abortion or something. I'm not sure exactly what the issue was, but Republicans were more in their feelings and Democrats were espousing facts. So they were able to take this high road of, well, I thought that facts didn't care about your feelings. And there are a few of those kind of
Gotcha
earwigs.
moments,
Yeah, gotcha earwigs that someone will use, and then the tides will turn on a different issue, and then the other people can be like, well, what about, you said this before, not my president, and now,
Yeah.
well, Biden's president, well, he's your president now. Like, it's just, they'll be able to like use the other person's stuff against them, so there's no argument. It's just it's just their earwigs, so you're using their offense against them. It's
I'll be intrigued, like, especially, I know America went through that whole abortion thing or whatever.
still happening.
I've never really actually genuinely thought about my own views on abortion
Okay.
at all. Like, on a level of, like, I know I wouldn't put a law down or anything like that or whatever. But I'm just kind of curious, like, what is your guys' view on it? And I know we can just talk candidly, just about just in general, whether it's philosophically or whether it's whatever. I'm just kind of intrigued
Sure.
as to what you guys kind of feel
Points of
about
view.
it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can go on that. You want me to tackle this?
Well, you know, I'm more than happy to.
Well, my specific views on it are: I'm not a woman. I will never have a child come out of me. I will never have that idea or that option even presented to me for me to make that decision. So I shouldn't be making decisions for other people. Laws should not be enacted to force someone to make a decision. If you're going to claim that you are the freest country in the world, which we know that America's not, but if you're going to claim that, then allow people to have their freedom to choose things like that. But then people can come back with other arguments, I'm sure. But my specific position is I'm not a woman. I shouldn't be making rules about what women do with their bodies, or just it's not my place. And on top of that, if the right wants to espouse that they are all about individual liberty and individual rights with gun ownership or with how they raise their children or anything like that, they need to be across the board on individual rights. They can't just pick and choose what sounds good to them or what feels good to them. But my specific view is it's not my place to make that choice for someone.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that, you know, growing up in a religious background, you know, you're always taught, you know, life starts at conception, and, you know, that's when the soul of a human being is created and such. So for myself personally, I agree completely with Keith. Like, I feel like I don't have a womb. I can't make that decision for people who do have wombs. Although I do, you know, I going back to that whole concept of, like, you know, anybody who disagrees with you must be wrong or evil or however you feel. There's a weird empathetic part of me that almost understands the right in their fervor against it, because you know, if we put ourselves in their shoes, and I used to be in those shoes, if you genuinely, and in every fiber of your being believe that children are being murdered, would you not be extremely vocal about it?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And I think that's, you know, so a lot of the time people see these Christian protesters and stuff, or religious protesters who are outside abortion clinics, and of course, for myself, I think that that's harmful. I don't think, you know, a woman who's making a very difficult decision to create an abortion doesn't need someone shouting in their face. You know, it's not an easy decision to make for any woman, you know. So I think it's wrong. But there's another empathetic side of me that's kind of like, I almost get it, even though I don't believe the same way they believe. I can still sort of see the fervor that comes from them, because in their minds they genuinely do believe
Yeah.
that
we're just murdering babies.
Yeah.
And yes, no one is pro murder baby. Like that's
Right.
what they use, that rhetoric of like, no child should ever be murdered. You can't make that choice for that child or whatever. But you can say that and it just sounds like you have the high road, but you're not taking any facts into account. You're not taking into account what that woman's going to go through, if she can even carry the baby to full term, all that kind of stuff. They just say, we don't like murdering babies, and Jesus says no.
Yeah.
When in reality, there are so many other factors to take into account that no one is just getting an abortion for fun. Like it's not a fun process. Have you ever spoken to a person who has had an abortion? It is a harrowing process, especially the further into the pregnancy you get. It goes from just pills to physical invasive procedures. Like no one's going in there and being like, well, gonna go in for my 7th abortion, woohoo. Like they act like Democrats are so murder baby, like pro murder babies, but that's just not what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I
understand. Yes, of course. If I believed that people were just murdering children, then I would care more about it. But why don't we care more about when babies are being, or children are being actually murdered in schools? Like there's that whole other side too. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Go into the weeds there.
I totally get what you guys are saying. I think I'm in a little bit of a weird place. I'm still trying to figure it out. Because on the one hand, the liberal side of me truly believes like I wouldn't have the strength or the energy to put laws into place to stop that sort of shit.
Sure.
I don't, at least I haven't tried to think in that way. I think I think about it in two different ways. And on the one hand, it's philosophical. And on the other hand, it's rhetoric. So on the rhetoric side, I think that people play word games. I think that if you believe that abortion is good and it's right and whatever, I don't think that you should run away from the fact that there is a chance that you are ending a life. Like that's, I mean,
or at least the potential for a life.
Yeah, potential for a life.
Sure.
You are, that's what it is. I mean, if you didn't disturb it, there would be a baby. Like,
sure.
Right. But having said that, I think that if you believe that that's all right, then you should own it. Like, there's not, like, if you believe that, hey, I believe that, you know, this is my body, this fetus growing inside of me, I should be able to end it, whatever. I think you should just own it. And that's that, I think. And then on the philosophical side, I'm kind of like, I don't even understand my own existence.
Yeah.
I don't even understand where I'm from or how it happened or what, like, this life is such an absolute miracle that I'm blown away sometimes.
Yeah.
And I know people don't like talking about the spiritual aspect of who we are as human beings, but there is an aspect to us that we can't really, whatever. And there is a part of me is just like, yeah, I don't fucking know, like what's happening there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, what the hell is happening there? But in general, I kind of like, I like to just watch other people talk about it. And
Especially two guys.
Yeah,
Yes, we are
yeah.
now the authority on abortion.
But to be fair, I will push back on this. I think that me being a human gives me a voice to be able to at least discuss these ideas.
Sure.
I don't think this game that people play of like, hey, you're not a woman, so you can't talk about abortion at all.
Right,
I'm like,
yeah.
yo, how many things about masculinity do you talk about and whatever? Like, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
I think people can talk about this shit. We're all humans. It's like, hey, you're not a slave trader, so you can't talk about slaves.
Yes.
Like, you don't own slaves. Like, but otherwise, in general, I'm just kind of like, I don't know. And because it hasn't happened to me, like I haven't impregnated someone, I hope. And
that you know of.
yeah. And imagine it's someone I really, really didn't like.
Yeah.
Really, really didn't like. And they were carrying my child. And then they said that they were going to have the baby.
Yeah.
And then I was going to be connected to them for the rest of my life. Would my stance still be the same? Would I? So I completely understand the weakness of my own views because I'm like, yo.
Yeah, everything's flavored by what your experience is and what your
Yeah.
But one thing I will say though is I do think that more should be put into prevention than like actually
Wrap it up, kids.
yeah.
So
I think that's the only thing.
I have a great example on what can we do before abortion should even be an option. Because again, I am not taking it. I'm not telling people not to have them or anything like that. I'm just saying there are steps that are before this that could reduce the pain and suffering you have to go through to get an abortion or something like that.
Yeah.
Like where I came from, especially because I went to public school. Josh doesn't have this experience, but in public school in Indiana, particularly, I believe the rule still is the law still is what they teach you in school is abstinence first. All they teach you is abstinence. So you're telling a bunch of 13 to 18-year-olds just don't have sex. Well, if you don't want to have kids, don't have sex. And they don't teach you about any kind of preventative measures. They don't teach you about any of the alternatives. It's all abstinence only.
Yeah.
And you're telling a bunch of horny 13 to 18-year-olds, just you know that thing you think about every single second of every day? Just don't think about it. Don't do it.
Yeah. You know that little monster in the back of your head?
They don't give you like, they don't come from a realistic standpoint of like, these children are going to have sex. What can we do to make sure that they have the best outcome from that? They don't end up with an STD. They don't end up with a child. And for that reason, my home county in where I went to school was #1 in Indiana for teen pregnancies for like 3 years in a row.
Really?
Yeah. Because we had 9 women walk across the graduation hall in a high school while pregnant because they didn't know or they weren't provided with enough information to make a decision about their health and future moving forward.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess nowadays, you can make the argument that nowadays everyone understands. Everyone, pretty much anybody who's on the internet, whether you're 12 years old or 112 years old, you know what a condom is, right?
Yeah.
But the education in a lot of these states is they don't even teach you about probabilities of pregnancy. They don't teach a lot of men and women don't even know how their own reproductive systems really work in the sense that they don't know about there's an astonishing amount of people who are just trusting the pull-out method, trusting like they're like, oh, I'm sure this is fine. And just like they're 16 years old, they've never been taught about probabilities of sperm and egg implantation. They've never been taught about ovulation cycles. They've never taught about any of this stuff. So then they're just like, oh my God, how did this happen? I pulled out.
Yeah.
And it's like when you're not teaching anybody the actual reproductive system, you end up with these situations. And then the harsh reality is that the states that aren't providing proper sex education are also coincidentally the states that are banning and making abortions illegal. So they're not teaching these young women and young men how to prevent getting pregnant before their time. And then when it happens, they're not allowing them to do anything about it. They're not allowing them to.
So
it's almost like you don't get to know about your own reproductive system but we get to tell you what you can do with it.
Yeah.
So the people that are well educated in this aspect, or their parents at least educate them in some way, those are the teenagers and young adults who are going to plan for a family if they want to have kids. They're going to do it later in life when they're prepared for it. Whereas these states like, say, Arkansas or Indiana, where they have these laws in place, they're raising basically their next generation to be raised by uneducated people. So it's a self-perpetuating problem. So they're building this base of a less educated population.
Yeah.
Idiocracy.
It is literally Idiocracy is becoming a documentary.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mike Judge.
Yeah, and I'll genuinely reiterate the fact that I don't think I've properly sat down and read up about. I just watch a ton of debates of people talking about this.
Sure.
And I find it's so interesting. It's such an interesting, because I could definitely make an argument on either side. I could definitely, like you were talking about, like, imagine if you truly believed that those were babies dying.
Right.
Right.
Of course, you're going to be
Passionate.
And at what point does that clump of cells become a baby? You know,
Yep.
Some people, like in New York, say all the way up until 9 months, and then right there, that's when, only when the baby comes out, that's when it's a baby. And some people are like, yo, as soon as my fucking sperm touches an egg, that's a bloody baby.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't think it's as clear cut, because I think when I look at humanity in general, I'm like, what is progress?
Yeah.
If you were a being watching Earth, right? What is progress? Is it progress for these individuals who have little versions of themselves to be able to expel them? Is that progress? Is that thing?
Mm-hmm.
Is it progress to put chains on those people so that they can't do anything about it? Is it, it's kind of an interesting kind of thing. It's like, I think I'll only care about abortion when it happens to me.
I think we're maybe 30 years late on me.
No. I mean, like, if I'm ever caught in that situation where someone, a woman that I've been with is pregnant or whatever,
right,
then I feel like then that's what I think it is. Dave Chappelle's.
Just don't have sex.
Yeah, I think it was Dave Chappelle who says, I don't care about abortion. It just depends on who I get pregnant.
Yeah. That is such
true.
the case too, which is so funny with some very like right-wing senators and things like that will be staunchly against it. As soon as their mistress, it's happened a few times, as soon as their mistress gets pregnant, that baby's gone.
Yeah.
That baby is gone.
Yeah.
They change their views real fast all of a sudden, personally.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I think, though, something that's even more important than talking about those issues, I think for me, in general, when it comes to America, Finland, whatever, it's what do you do with your life to make your life as best as you can make it for yourself and for the people around you.
Yeah.
I think that's where the core of this is, because social media has made the world an entire community, and we just not able to interact with so many people.
No.
And I think like communities is like a better thing. I think like even things like abortion and whatever, when you're in your community with the people that you care about and whatever, that's, I'm like, that's you guys.
Yeah. Well, we evolved from a place where we would have max 500 people in a community of people.
Yeah.
For until the last 1,000 years, maybe even more recent than that. So we evolved this whole way to have this small community, like a manageable community where we can have discussions and we know each other intimately and we can speak from our own experiences, and everyone has kind of a shared experience.
Yeah.
Whereas now that it's a worldwide thing, you have people from like Southeast Asia and Canada talking to each other with just completely different lived experiences, and no one can relate. We're losing the sense of empathy because no one can relate with each other on even a foundational basis. It's wonderful that we can all communicate and we can share ideas, and we just need to make sure that we're all listening as well and not just speaking of ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, even here, like we talk about, we all of us come from much bigger places than Tampere, even Helsinki, but, us living here in Tampere, it sounds like an absolute mind-blowing fact, but, even if you go back just a couple hundred years ago, walking down Hamenkatu on a Saturday morning, I will walk past more people than most people ever met in their entire life.
True.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
It's like, I will just walk in this 1 kilometer stretch of Hamenkatu down the center of Tampere, and I will just pass by more people. Yeah. And it's having that kind of access to so many people and having so many people around you, can in a weird way become very isolating.
Yeah.
And you start to think that you start to lose that community, like you said, in a way, and you start to lose that group of people, and then it's easy to demonize others who disagree with you, or demonize other people who maybe come from a different background, because you exist in your own little bubble and they're outside your bubble, and they're you don't have that kind of synergy going on, I guess. And it's almost it's the good part about this melding pot that a lot of us live in, and also the bad part, I guess, is that it's just easier to lose community when there's too many people.
You have to try and look within yourself. Everyone has to do this, and self-reflection isn't very popular sometimes, but look inside yourself and see what positives you're bringing maybe from your own experience to the community, even if it is a new community, being an immigrant here. And making sure that you are bringing positives and only bringing positives, not bringing an additional thing. We don't want to bring America here. We don't live in America for a reason. We want to live in Finland and be a part of this culture, but bringing some of our experience here too, so that we can all share in some of that.
No, I completely get you. Do you guys feel like, even when it comes to politics here in Finland, I feel like they import a lot of their politics in terms of they see how America has these extremes.
Yeah.
And because here I'm like, bro, if you are on extreme side in Finland, I don't know what to tell you. That's so dumb. Bro.
I do agree. I've even, when I first moved here, and now that the new election cycle is starting, you hear the rhetoric again. I've been here for 6 years. I've been here from the second half of Trump administration. So I was here for the first Trump rerunning, and now I'm here for the second Trump rerunning. Anytime I say I'm American, everyone always asks, how do you feel about Trump? How do you feel about whatever? But the thing is, it's always so funny to me when I encounter any Finn who has a strong opinion either way.
Really?
Because I'm like, why do you care? You know what I mean? I understand the influence that the USA has on the world, especially now Finland being part of NATO, and USA is kind of like the de facto leader of NATO. But, I've even had several Finns of mine be like, oh, Donald Trump did so many great things for America, and I wish we could get that out here. And I'm like, how much do you know about it? How much have you researched? What have you, where did you learn that? Or how much? And then I'll have the other side. People talk about, how great, Bernie Sanders would have been as president. I'm like, where are you?
We're just so visible in the States.
Yeah, I guess we're so visible.
Everyone sees us in Britain mainly, are the two politics that everyone in the world kind of knows. Everyone knows that Trump was president. Everyone in the world knows at least a touch of American politics. Whereas living in America, I wouldn't have thought about Stubb being president here. It was, I wouldn't even thought about Finland. It's just so visible to everyone.
I haven't followed Trump's administration too much. I've just heard the different how people feel about him in general. And this is one thing about American politics I don't understand, because I was having an argument with my brother about this. We were talking about the next elections and that sort of shit and whatever. For me personally, I think both these old guys need to go. Probably need to bring in someone like RFK. I personally dig it.
For the last 3 elections, how are these the options?
Yeah. But something I was just talking to him, I was just like, bro, why don't you get more involved in the politics in your state?
Right.
That's where, if you really want to see the effect of these policies and whatever, why don't you focus more on the politics within your state? You go to the city council meetings, talk, you can actually change things to live differently in your own state. American presidents have unprecedented power in terms of what do you call it when you have
Influencer
like international power, like the ability to
reach.
declare war on different countries or whatever.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
they've got a lot of power when it comes to foreign policy.
Foreign
That's right.
policy, yes.
Like their power is crazy, right?
Yeah.
I think more than almost any other president I can think of. But when it comes to like local politics, like, bro, what are you doing crying about? Like, focus on that. Like, you could actually make so much change.
I don't know what that thing is because nobody does pay attention to local stuff.
Well,
really.
that is one. You know, we talked about earlier in the podcast, kind of a callback about how many different political parties there are, and there is a part of me that loses sympathy for these like libertarian parties, green parties. Struggling to think of any other ones, but libertarian, I guess, would be the third biggest party, right? And a lot of people always talk about, oh, it's not fair that the candidate doesn't get on the debate stage and all that stuff. And while that is true, I also always sit back and wonder, why do we only hear about libertarians or Green Party when it's the presidential election? It's like, you don't hear about them running for mayor. You don't hear about them running for city council. You don't hear about them running for local judge or whatever. You don't hear about these people running for local elections. You just, whenever the presidential candidate comes around, they're like, I'm running for president and you should vote for me because I'm third party.
Right.
It's like, so what has your party been doing on the smaller scale to build a foothold in the nation?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like
the only example of that would be Gary Johnson out of like New Mexico or Arizona, but he was because he was a governor there, I think.
He was governor of New Mexico.
New Mexico.
Yeah,
but he was Green Party? I don't.
Yeah,
I don't even
he
know.
was libertarian.
But he was running for president. That is the only reason the whole nation knows of him. But he was elected into a high level position in the state. But to what you're saying, election cycles in the U.S. technically for president they're every 4 years, but for more local offices or for statewide things and state senators and things, they're every 2 years. Nobody pays attention to the one in the middle. There's the mid presidential cycle that they have that's every 2 years that no one even thinks about.
Yeah, you have the midterm elections that will be coming up in 2026, and I mean the turnout at the polls is just absurd. Like, people just don't even care. They think, whatever. And that's how you end up with people like Mitch McConnell, who's been the governor of Kentucky for 1,000 years, I think, something like that.
He is a turtle. Yeah,
he's the oldest thing
Is he
I've
the
ever
guy that
seen.
was freezing up sometimes?
Yeah, he's the guy who's short circuiting.
Right.
He's also the guy who talks about Biden being senile, but he's having actual strokes on stage.
Yeah, shit.
But
Yeah.
he's the oldest thing I've ever seen, and I've been to Greece. So I've seen the Parthenon.
he grew up on Galapagos. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that man.
Gosh.
Yeah,
Do you guys follow Finnish politics at all?
Honestly, not even until really recently, because I've never been allowed to vote in Finnish politics, because of my own. I mean, I am obviously a resident here, but you have to spend a certain amount of time in the country before you can vote for local elections, and of course, you can't vote for national elections until you're a citizen.
Right.
But it really wasn't until this past parliamentary election where Kokoomus took the majority of the coalition, the majority vote, that I started really paying attention. Yeah, it's pretty recently. I think before that it was sort of a kind of mindset of, I can't affect any change on it anyway myself, so why should I worry about it?
Yeah.
And now that I've reached a point in my residency where I can legally vote, I'm now starting to think, okay, now I do have at least a local voice in Tampere. I should maybe start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only started really listening or paying attention to particular views and things. Not so much during the parliamentary election, because I was still pretty fresh here, I think, at that point, during that cycle. Yeah. So I just didn't know what was going on. But the presidential, I paid a little bit more attention to, just because my wife, and then I'd be with our family and listen to their views on things. But again, I only also got my residency 3 weeks ago. So even local elections were not an option for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I try and pay attention to it. But I find it so boring.
They don't fight like they do in the States, man.
Yeah,
you don't see these smear campaigns.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I mean, like, some of the American I was going to say machismo, but that means something else. I was going to say the energy that.
It's like the WWE.
Yeah.
We know how to put on a show.
Yeah,
It's a reality TV show.
Yeah.
I feel like here they're trying to import it. Like, even when it comes to, like, I'm not saying, like, some of those candidates like Rika Pura and whatever said some crazy shit, and bro, we can agree with that, blah blah blah, whatever, fuck it. But I find that the actual disagreements between the parties and stuff, like, when you look into it, like, some of the disagreements I actually quite understand. I'm like, okay, in Europe right now, people are terrified when it comes to immigration, or at least unchecked immigration.
Yeah.
And you had the more left-wing parties, or a lot of left-wing parties around Europe seemed, they like Sweden, they wanted to posture themselves as morally righteous without creating the groundwork of how to actually properly integrate people into the countries and whatever. And that created some issues.
Yeah, they're having
and
issues. Yeah.
of course, some people are using that to be racist, and some people are using it to be like, to call other people racist.
Yeah.
And some people, it's just like, bro, we can have both. Finland does need immigration. It literally needs immigration.
Oh yeah, the birth rates in Finland are so low that this economy is 15 years away from collapsing.
Yeah.
If there is no immigration.
Yeah.
I can say.
But at the same time, don't then go make it, like, I understand a lot of the immigration issues had to do with more asylum seekers, whatever. Because obviously, everyone's taxes are going to blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
So there is that, but, like, hey, create incentives for highly skilled people to come, and make it easier for people who are actually, you can have both, because I think this new government wants to limit the amount of asylum seekers that come.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can look at that and be like, oh, that's evil. You can, hey, it depends. They got voted in, so obviously a lot of people agreed with that. I don't know.
I will push back a little bit, though, in the sense that this is something that I think you and I have discussed ad nauseum off mic, in the sense that, the rhetoric that's being pushed a lot is that we want, as you said, highly educated immigrants to come in here. But the problem is, what do they do when they get here? I fully agree that learning how to speak Finnish when you live in Finland is very important. But I think a lot of Finns don't understand the actual effort that goes into learning Finnish, or the actual difficulty. And every Finn has one person they've met. Oh, this person's only been here 2 years and already speaks it fluently. Yeah. Okay, that's cool, but that doesn't mean that now we can just blanket say it takes 2 years to learn Finnish.
You're right.
Some people it takes a decade. Some people it takes 6 months. The problem is if you say to me, okay, we want to have highly educated people coming into Finland. Oh, here's this amazing engineer who is from the UK, and he marries a Finnish woman, and we want him to move here, and he's got his master's in some whatever in city infrastructure, or whatever what I'm looking for. Highly educated, cannot find a job anywhere because he doesn't speak Finnish. He's not Finnish.
His resume doesn't have a Finnish name on it.
He doesn't have a Finnish name on his CV, and he's only been here for 6 months. How can you expect him to speak Finnish? And you see this across the board, where you even have people who come here to study. We've had several friends I've had friends who got their bachelor's in the States, came out here to study their master's, finished their 2-year master's degree, and then they genuinely try to find jobs in Finland. But because they've only been here 2 years and their Finnish still isn't fluent or native level, they can't find jobs, and so they just go back to the States. And then you build this resentment from Finns to these foreigners by saying, oh, you came here, you got a cheap education, and you just fucked off. Well, that's not what really happened. No. What really happened is you came here, got an education, found out after you graduated that your Finnish wasn't good enough, and your options were starve or go back home. And I think that there's this huge issue of, even in like the tech community, for example, there's a lot of my friends who are programmers or developers who really have no need for Finnish immediately, but you see on all these applications, like, on all these postings for jobs, native level English and Finnish fluency.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like the standard for what they're expecting, even if it's not necessary, they're looking for this. And I think a lot of Finns really just don't understand how difficult their own language is.
Yeah.
And the language barrier there, and again, I want to go circle back to saying, I fully agree that if you're going to live in Finland and make a life in Finland, you should make an effort to learn Finnish.
Of course.
But it's not a light switch you just flip. It's not an app you just download. It's not something that you just do.
Yeah.
For the most of us, not only are we trying to learn Finnish, but we also have a lot of people who move here for family. They have families, they have children, they have full-time jobs, or they're trying to find full-time jobs, or they're trying to earn income to take care of their families, and they may only have an hour or so to practice Finnish every day. And that's going to take years to fully develop, but it's almost, in my experience with my own international friends, like there really is no slack being given there.
Yeah.
It's come here,
Yeah.
learn Finnish, get a job, what have you. So the rhetoric is we want highly educated individuals here, but
We're gonna make it fucking
we're
difficult.
going to make it
for
as
them.
difficult as possible for them to
Yeah.
to get a job here.
Learn
So
this
it's like-
language that is so specific and so far removed from every other language on the planet. That is the third hardest
Yeah.
language
Yeah.
to learn on the planet.
It's
Yeah,
I get it, and I'm learning. I'm
Yeah.
on the Finnish wife system. If you can see behind Chico, we've got post-it notes of
Yeah.
what I'm learning words for things. I'm
Yeah.
actively trying, and I'm doing that, but it's going to take me so long. First of all, I'm a 31-year-old man. My brain is developed. It is so difficult to learn something new like this.
Yeah,
drop of a
at
hat.
the drop of a hat. Yeah.
But I'm trying. But does that matter? Even though everyone I interact with will probably speak English to a certain degree, if I'm looking for a job somewhere, it doesn't matter.
No, I definitely I accept your pushback, and it's a good one because it does bring an interesting question, because it's like, okay, we want these highly skilled workers, but we're also going to make it really difficult for them. And then the new government comes in and starts implementing laws like, hey, if you lose your job within 3 months,
yeah.
you don't
You're
get one.
fucked.
Like
Yeah.
that seems like it's hamstringing Finland, and Finland has the potential to do really well on the world stage. And I think right now there is like a lot of the new companies being created, and the source is, hey, it came out of my head. I don't know if this is actually true. I think I heard someone talking about this, that a lot more companies are implementing English as their language, so especially some of these newer startups, especially startups who want to go worldwide,
Right.
or whatever. So maybe there is some of that. And I wonder if there can be the best of both worlds, where you're able to encourage people, international people, educated people, to come to Finland and work and make it easier for them, while at the same time, the people that actually come genuinely are keen to get into the culture, to know what's going on, and all that sort of shit. Like, I wonder if there is a balance, because it's true. I've heard from a lot of people that it can be difficult to find jobs here. Like it can be really difficult.
very
I
difficult,
remember I just when COVID hit, because I was working in restaurants and stuff,
Yeah.
and I was also performing music, and it all just ended. And I remember going online, and a lot of the shit was just like, some of them didn't even bother writing it out in English.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
And it's true. I can't argue against that. Like, you know, and some Finnish person watching will be like, well, you know, you need to be motivated or whatever. But like you say, I feel like some people don't understand how difficult
Yeah.
it can be.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
and on the flip side, you know, let's take somebody who, you know, you have the argument of, okay, are you going to have a highly educated person who studied abroad move to Finland with that education? In which case, why would you expect them to have been studying Finnish in their home country?
True. Yeah.
Or you have somebody who moves here and gets that advanced degree, and then it's like, do you expect this person to study Finnish full time and try to get their PhD at the same time, you know, and try to work at the same time? You know, something is going to take a hit on priority. And typically what happens is the language takes a hit on priority because everyone does speak English in Finland.
Yeah.
So what happens is they focus all their time on learning their degree and paying their bills. And then when they have time, learn Finnish. But it just feels like there's not a whole lot of grace there. But one thing I can already see in the comments, I can foresee it because I've seen so many of these comments. There is this rhetoric, which I totally understand, of we don't want Finnish to become a dead language. You know, if everyone just resorts to English, if everyone just resorts to the common language, then, you know, you even see it in a lot of like Gen Alpha or like really young Finnish kids who speak kind of Finglish a lot. They learn this English from Fortnite or from whatever games they're playing or from whatever shows they're watching, and they start integrating English slang into their dialect, and they start, you know, and you hear this kind of grumbling from older generations of, oh, little kids can't even speak Finnish anymore. And I understand that genuine fear of losing your heritage, losing your culture, losing what made Finland Finland for the past however many years, especially since Finland is a country that has historically been oppressed from the East or the West, you know? And I get that. But at the same time, I feel like you said, there can be a middle ground. There can be a little bit more grace in the sense that if the job is not a customer-facing job where you're constantly talking to customers, and it's like a back-end, let's say you're a developer at an international company, your company is already operating in English. You're an international company. So what is the problem with this person? This person's not speaking Finnish or English. They're speaking Python.
Yeah.
Proficient
in C++. Yeah.
But to that credit, I am a bartender part-time out here, and I do speak as much Finnish as possible when I'm bartending. I will communicate what they want in Finnish. I will, you know, ask questions, you know, do you want ice or these things in Finnish? Because I understand that I am working at a Finnish bar in Finnish. Now, obviously, if they throw me a curveball that I don't understand, or I hear a dialect I don't understand, I might gently try to switch to English.
Yeah.
But as much as possible, I try to stick to Finnish, and that's because I know that I'm in a customer-facing position.
Yeah. And we're not here to try and destroy the culture
No,
or anything.
yeah.
We want to integrate with the culture as much as possible, and we're working on it. It just takes
time,
so much
yeah.
time.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of you guys. And I think, at least from my perspective, what I've seen is probably the fact that I think the culture being dissolved is what people I see worry about, or the culture changing to a point where, because think about it, the way I view it is that we love this place. Finland has obviously done something very right.
Right. Yeah.
And we don't want that thing that they've done right to change.
No, I want to be here because it's Finland.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think, so I can completely empathize with people who are like, yo, we don't want our culture to end. Like for me, the language was really difficult for me, and I am trash at it right now because I wasn't expecting to stay here. And then by the time I stayed here, I was already working in a job that didn't require me to learn Finnish or whatever. But now my mind has changed, and I'm keen to learn the language. But still, I've still been able to genuinely appreciate the culture, genuinely like I'm really proud of this country. I feel like I'm a part of this culture now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I feel like Finnish people, they really accept you if they feel that you are making an effort to be a part of their world, you know? And I really dig that. And that's why, for me, a lot of the time, I'm on the Finnish people side in terms of like...
I agree, yeah.
You know, most of the time when they're like, we don't want our culture to be destroyed, I was like, yes, we don't want our culture to be destroyed.
I think Keith would probably agree with me. You'll probably see me and Keith defending Finnish culture more than not, I think.
Yeah. Especially with, we have some American and other immigrant friends who will sometimes start bashing on things that aren't just difficult, like we're talking about right now, that are on this surface, but they're complaining about Finnish culture itself. And we are the first ones to be like, go back to your home country. As soon as we touch the dry land,
we become the hillbillies. Yeah. Why don't you get out of here if you don't like it?
But a lot of Finns are like,
I agree with you guys. I'm totally like that.
Yeah. A lot of Finns are kind of like that. There's a Key and Peele sketch. It's kind of like this older black man talking to a younger black man about like,
yes.
yeah, you go out there, enjoy yourself, but hey, don't forget where you came from. Like, it's like they'll be like, no, we love having people here. We love having new people here from different places and all that. Love that you're trying, but hey, don't forget, this is Finland.
Yeah. And to go full circle, that's why I also lose my shit against Finnish people who talk bad about their own culture.
Yes.
In terms, I genuinely get annoyed. I'm like, I'm from a country. Oh yeah, you're arguing with me while you're chilling in your nice home and you walk around all safe. You've got a kid who takes the bus whenever they want at whatever time.
Yeah.
You lose your laptop, it comes back
That
to
is
you.
baffling,
All
yeah.
this sort of shit, and you're going to look at me and talk about how backwards the Finnish culture is. Bitch, get out of here!
What?
Like what?
Yeah.
That is so stupid.
If some parent put a child on a public bus in the States, they would get just bashed immediately. Are you
That child would
trying to
be
get them
taken
picked
away.
up by a child
Really?
predator? They'd call CPS.
That child
Child
would be
Protective
taken away.
Services.
Oh my gosh, it would be
When I
it's-
see like 10-year-olds walking the street at like 10 p.m., I'm like,
I know,
what
right?
are you doing? Where are your parents?
just yesterday I was working a bartending shift at the Tamalan Stadium here in Tampere,
Right.
and there was this match
Continue.
being played, and there was a whole bunch of kids who came in seemingly by themselves to watch this football match, and I'm like, is there any adult with you?
But it just
I know.
speaks again to how nice it is. It's so safe here. Like you don't.
yeah,
It's not a constant like threat of child predators coming after your children and
No.
things. Like it's so much different. So yeah, it is a mind fuck though when you first
yeah.
see that kind of thing.
I think it's sort of like, because a lot of these discussions, and we should finish soon because I still need to catch a bus.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
But
Let's wrap it up.
yeah, but a lot of things that I've seen is like Finland and a lot of the other Nordic Scandinavian countries have found a nice balance with a lot of these things that America just really goes crazy about. Like here in Finland, I don't know, how often do you hear people like protesting about abortion or something?
Not often.
Yeah.
Or
No, it's pretty rare.
you know, because I think they found a middle ground. I think they like, it's legal up until a certain amount of weeks.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah.
so you've got all that time to
Yeah.
do whatever. And regardless of the moral side of it and whatever,
Right.
you know, I think everyone's kind of like, yeah,
It makes sense.
yes.
It also might come from a cultural point of Finns don't generally like to impose their will on people.
Yeah.
You know, Finns are very much keep to themselves. I'll worry about me. You know, like let's you know, Finns don't like being like the do what I say kind of people. So
Yes.
that might also contribute to it, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, the allowance of individualism is much higher here.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, I completely agree. And that's why it's like, so going forward, where do you guys see? I mean, you guys can kind of just say a little bit about like what you're hoping for, what you're working towards, like
Sure.
what you're trying to do.
I think right now my biggest focus or my hope for 2024 is to really become independent in my every aspect of my life, in the sense that, like, you know, I would like to be able to create the content that I want to create and sustain myself from it, and start the ventures and the side projects that I want to start, and be able to do that. So right now, this is the kind of year of Josh individuality, in the sense of like, I want to become fully independent in my own financial, entrepreneurial, and creative ways. That's what I'm hoping, and I think I have some interesting opportunities to do so, with especially in Finland, I think.
And how did you start content creating, actually? Because
honestly, it's a boring story. I was bored at home during COVID and just started making stupid videos that I thought no one would ever watch, and then accidentally people did, and then I just kept doing it.
That's the Koskenkorva video, right?
Yeah, I made
that's the
some video
first
of
one,
me
yeah.
calling my mom back in the States and like talking about how my life has not changed at all since living in Finland, but I'm pouring Koskenkorva into my coffee. And then I like shut the fridge. And that's the
That's
video. And it got
gold.
like 500,000 views, and like I had no followers, and then I ended up with like 1,000 followers from one video, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then I just sort of started making videos and was like, okay, like people are watching this. You know?
awesome.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it was kind of a total accident, really. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, for 2024 in the future. I mean, like I said, I just got my residence permit finally.
Congratulations.
So,
I know it's a great
oh
feeling.
my
It's a
God,
burden relieved.
I
Yeah.
woke up to that. Elisa had already left for work, and I woke up to that email, and I was just kind of groggy eyed, and I immediately awake and just like jumped out of bed and like ran through the apartment like yes. Sorry, but
Glitter
just
cannons
so
going
stoked.
off.
Immediately texted Josh, like, dude.
Yeah.
We did all that. I think somebody's home. But no, for the future, continuing my job search and also trying to go a little more individualistic and hopefully forward with building myself, being a little more entrepreneurial, so that maybe
Right.
I can build my own business and do something like that. I would like to do a little content creation. I have some ideas on that as well.
Fantastic.
But just integrating into society, building my relationship even more with my wife, and moving forward.
amazing. Well, guys, this was so much fun. We have
Yeah.
to do this again,
Yeah,
and you guys need to come to Helsinki.
yeah,
Yeah,
And
we
then-
actually
and
have, well, this is a little spoiler, but I'm not going to give any more than this. We do have a big 3-part the TikTok thing
You
going
can-
on that we're going to be filming in Helsinki. No, nothing going to say more than that, but we will be going
That's all
down to
you're saying?
Helsinki
That's
to
all you're
film a
saying?
little bit.
Okay.
I mean,
alright.
I can.
No,
I
it's
can,
gonna be cooler if you just
yeah,
let
it's,
it happen.
it's going to be cool, but we have something.
We can tell you off.
something
off mic.
Amazing.
camera,
Yeah.
but a little spoiler teasing something, but we do have a little few part thing that we will be coming down to
It's
Helsinki.
really exciting.
Oh, amazing. I'm excited. Guys,
We can also carve some time for episode 2 for that, you know.
oh yes. No, we have to do this because
Yeah. Great.
this episode was a lot to do with politics and shit.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've got a lot of
We can do poop jokes in the next one.
yes, exactly. But you guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
so
you
much,
for
man.
having us.
Thank you.
Bye. Okay.